The difficulty is, at least on Twitch and YouTube, you would need a lot of people of substantial stature, and most importantly, who make these platforms a lot of money, to get together and want to form that union, to talk about it, to do action that would essentially, you know, threaten to hurt the bottom line of these firms in order to provoke that kind of action and to, you know, provoke the unionizing. When it comes to smaller independent contractors like myself and other smaller creators, nearly impossible. You could get a bunch of like 100 view average Twitch streamers together to take a day off Twitch or whatever, and Twitch is going to like sneeze, if anything at all, and that's it. They're gonna wipe their nose and then they move on. You have to know that they understand that it's harder for people to organize if they're not actual employees going to a physical space and working there. It's already hard enough for Tesla workers to try to unionize, and they literally go to factories to work. So for things like Uber, it's like nearly impossible, and the firms enjoy the benefits of that from not having to worry as much about unionizing. Oh yeah, what I was talking about before. The most recent video on YouTube that we put out today, !ADHD, got a copyright strike from some company, I imagine affiliated with Jubilee, but I don't know if that's actually true. I could look it up, and I should, but... So, for literally like a minute's worth of content, this is like one of the first times this has ever happened to me. I've gotten a copyright strike before, but that one was more obvious. Because like I reacted to like a Daily Show affiliated video, which makes a lot of sense that that would get yoinked. So we just don't react to anything like that anymore. But this time, I've put out so many Jubilee videos without a problem. And this was like a minute of a 40-minute long video where I'm reacting to this fucking Jubilee video. And they got, so it's probably like an automatic process because a lot of, you know, bigger brands use that to steal money from smaller creators for doing transformative content. So YouTube allows you to cut out the offending material, quote unquote, of what's been claimed and then submit an appeal, and it's taking for fucking ever to process. So I'm just not making money from that video, shockingly. I've lost money now on like 5 videos recently, which is really cool. It's so dumb. And it's like, if I changed nothing about the video and then I appealed it, and then we actually were able to get the copyright taken off without changing the video at all, it's not like I get reimbursed for the money I lost because of this bullshit mistake that's out of my control. You just lose the money. You're guilty until proven innocent on YouTube for this kind of shit, and it's really fucking annoying, especially as a smaller creator. But I mean, at least I'm not really making that much money off YouTube anyway, overall. It's like, it's not the biggest loss, it's just stupid. Unionizing shit on YouTube is incredibly difficult in the same way that unionizing any industry that utilizes independent contractors is going to be difficult. Because independent contractors are not actual like employees that get a W-2, you know, you have to do your own taxes, you know, you don't get income tax every time you get your paycheck, and you get a fucking refund later on. You have to, you know, pay your taxes and do all that shit on your own. The company doesn't handle that shit, so that's extra money out of your pocket. And you're not like a true employee. So it is very at will, and a lot of employment already at the lower level is already at will, meaning that they can hire you and fire you at whatever fucking reason they want, and get fucked if you don't like it. Except it's more exploitative for independent contractors. So like, for instance, in like the most generic example, you're in a firm that gives you a W-2, you're an actual employee, and you all go to the office. You all go to the same building. Unionizing that would be a lot easier because you've got people there physically gathering together every single goddamn day. Obviously, that's going to be a lot easier to organize because you're physically socializing. Work from home makes that a little bit harder because you're not seeing your coworkers as much. You're having less opportunity to even bring up the concept of unionizing, much less forming those kinds of social connections with them. So it's not as bad as independent contractor, but it's a little bit harder to do that. It's a lot harder to organize online as well, because like you have to get in contact with people. People have to be able to be contacted online, and sometimes people aren't. Some of the older folks might not have any kind of social media you could look for. You'd have to find their phone number or something. So that's difficult. So then when you get to the level of independent contractors, like are the workers who work for Uber, DoorDash, Twitch, YouTube, all these other kinds of things, it is infinitely harder because you don't have any kind of sense of connection to your fellow worker. And a lot of these firms like Uber or whatever, or YouTube or Twitch, you're not directly interfacing with any other person doing the same job that you are, unless you make the active effort to in the form of like collabs on social media. But in terms of like Uber and DoorDash and whatever, you literally never are. I don't know if there's ever been a time when a DoorDash employee collaborated with another DoorDash employee to do something. So forming those kinds of social connections that would facilitate even talking about wanting to organize for better wages, better working conditions, etc., infinitely harder, to the point of being almost impossible. Now, it's not impossible. The difficulty is, at least on Twitch and YouTube, you would need a lot of people of substantial stature, and most importantly, who make these platforms a lot of money, to get together and want to form that union, to talk about it, to do action that would essentially, threaten to hurt the bottom line of these firms in order to provoke that kind of action and to, provoke the unionizing. When it comes to smaller independent contractors like myself and other smaller creators, nearly impossible. You could get a bunch of like 100 view average Twitch streamers together to take a day off Twitch or whatever, and Twitch is going to like sneeze, if anything at all, and that's it. That's about it. They're going to wipe their nose and then they move on because it doesn't matter to them. When it comes to like Uber or DoorDash, even less, because they'll just get other people to do the work because it's independent contractor. It's hard to like, okay, we're going to have like a mobilization of Uber workers that are just not going to work today on this day. And then you have a whole bunch of people that scab by accident because they didn't know that that was happening, because there was no way they could have known that that was happening. And you have to know that the firms that enjoy these independent contractor arrangements understand that. With Elon Musk has a big history of union busting in a lot of his different projects, like Tesla, etc. You have to know that they understand that it's harder for people to organize if they're not actual employees going to a physical space and working there. It's already hard enough for Tesla workers to try to unionize, and they literally go to factories to work. So for things like Uber, it's like nearly impossible, and the firms enjoy the benefits of that, from not having to worry as much about unionizing. This is why even Amazon, like the behemoth Amazon, has the Amazon labor union up their ass now, that actually won a contract in a completely like out of nowhere victory that was absolutely unheard of, because people actually go to Amazon fulfillment centers to do the work. So when it comes to YouTube or whatever, unless you were to get a lot of the biggest players to participate, which you're probably not going to get, because a lot of the biggest players on YouTube are like doing apolitical, family-friendly content, like kids' toy unboxing reviews and like family vlog content, like Mr. Beast type hype content. These people don't care about that. They already got theirs. They're like literally getting the bag every single video they put out. They don't have any incentive to give a shit about anybody else and trying to work with anybody else to make the conditions of everybody better. And it would help them too. If the statistics behind the unionization of any firm are to show for it, it also helps the people that are in a more privileged position. It just happens to also help people that aren't. Yeah, there are competitors like Nebula or whatever, but like they're small potatoes compared to YouTube and Twitch. There's certainly something to look into and support. But, like, YouTube doesn't give a shit about Nebula in any serious capacity, because they don't have to. So it's just going to be it's going to be really difficult. And, like, in terms of, like, competitors going up, it's going to be difficult to beat that Google money, to beat that Amazon money. That's just the fact. It's going to be very difficult to do that because the logistics of setting up a streaming platform that is hosting, like, terabytes upon terabytes of data every single goddamn day is really expensive and time consuming. It requires a lot of employees to manage. It requires a lot of money to upkeep. It's really difficult. And Google money keeps YouTube, Amazon money keeps Twitch, and like the logistics behind Google and Amazon when it comes to those things, the servers, Amazon Web Services, and all this kind of shit, is just really difficult. It's not to say that people shouldn't think about it, try to put together plans for it, try to actually do it. It's just to say that it's a very uphill battle. It is not as easy as PVC, as an Moist Critical, whatever, take a day off, Pokimane, take a day off, and then suddenly Twitch Union. It's not how that works. Now, that would help a lot, but even then, those creators I just mentioned, while they are like of substantial size and make a good amount of money for Amazon and Twitch, they're still not enough, because there's so many streamers on Twitch that are doing fairly well. Like, there are streamers you would never even have heard of that are getting like 10, 20, 30,000 plus viewers concurrently on their streams, and you've just never heard of them. So it's really difficult. I don't know if YouTube has ever been profitable. Yeah, I'd have no idea. Like, usually a lot of the firms like that are in the red for a long time until they're finally not, if ever. But I don't know. So in terms of, like, trying to do it, people should. I just don't know really what the steps would be. Like, I guess you could get together, like, you could contact other creators and you'd be like, yo, do you have any kind of gripes with YouTube or Twitch or wherever it is you're, operating as an independent contractor for? Maybe we could get together and raise awareness, do like a collab, like fundraising stream for this effort, or that would be even further in the future. Or just do like a collab stream where we talk about it and like play games or whatever. Maybe we all take a day off one day, or even like stream on a competitor if we have the capability, even though depending on your contract on Twitch, you don't. That would be easier to do if you were a YouTube streamer trying to do this. It'd be like stream on Twitch for however many days, or not at all. Like, just don't stream if you have the ability to do that. But you'd also have to have the funds, the strike funds, to be able to float people's income who need their income to live, so that people don't scab and blah, blah, blah. It's really difficult, and it's definitely something that would be very beneficial to be worked on, but it's just going to be really hard. I guess the most practical solution is just broad changes? Maybe. Problem is that those broad changes are the hardest to implement. Usually it's a lot easier to get very incremental change. A lot of big creators survive off of Patreon, which just shows that YouTube's business model is broken. It depends on the content you make, for sure. It also depends on what you mean by survive off of. Like, be able to pay your bills. Like, what are your bills? And like, are you living lavishly? Which I would never fault anybody for, but it's like, it's in the conversation, right? Like, what would be the bare minimum money you would have to make? And like, what would be the changes made so that you could live on that bare minimum, and that, would be the calculation. And then you find out, like, if it's sufficient and blah, blah, blah. YouTube is very unreliable. That is true. This is why I also stream. I had the idea of just being a YouTuber for a while, but then I decided I might as well just stream at the same time and record what I'm doing live, like for my YouTube, but live on Twitch as well, because it's an alternative revenue stream. It seems to be best practices for any content creator to diversify your income streams, because you never know when you're going to get yoinked from one of them, right? So I make money from YouTube, Twitch, my Safe for Work Fansly, Patreon, my website, and it's just what you got to do, especially as a smaller creator. It would be super cool if the Amazon labor union started making a lot more wins within the Amazon fulfillment center sphere and all that. To the point where like they had the capacity to do stuff for Twitch as well, since it's affiliated. That would be neat, because obviously they would have the infrastructure, they would have the know-how, but I feel like it's probably better for them to focus on getting as many union contracts won as possible within the fulfillment centers and focusing on that for now. Like, that'd be further into the future. There are infinitely more Amazon fulfillment center workers than there are Twitch streamers. So it would be a better use of time and labor and money to focus on that. Plenty of quote-unquote unprofitable online services aren't actually unprofitable. It's just shown that way thanks to trickiness with tax filings to help them maximize money. Is that so? That doesn't shock me if so. Oh yeah, plus diversifying your social media, footprint to as many different services as you can is good for discoverability and eyeballs, which is what makes you money. So you essentially use every other social media website to advertise your other social media websites, right? So like, I use my Twitter a lot to shout out my Twitch and YouTube stuff. I use my YouTube to shout out my Twitch. I use my Twitch to shout out my YouTube. I use my, blah, 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 right? Maybe Rumbleball. He'll follow me back one day. He can't avoid me forever. That Hassan fellow. He can't avoid me forever.